Is the Federation good or bad? Yazhi. As with many large things, the larger, the even more complex. No one can say if it is good or bad as such, taking into account that the Federation is not one single entity, and it is made of people with different points of view and many different opinions coming from an extremely wide variety of backgrounds, because they come from different cultures, some similar to Earth's and others very different. On Earth, most people into the Federation subject claim it is all love and light, benevolent and working for the people. Something so complex and so large cannot be simply catalogued as good or bad. That would be and is an oversimplified idea and concept that does not reflect reality. Something so large as a political institution cannot possibly be all good always, as good and evil can only be seen as such relative to something else. Good can be bad for some people, and what is evil for another may be good for yet another. Even defining good and evil is complicated. So we must take the Federation subject specifying with what context we are looking at it from what point of view, with who and when. Who in the Federation is doing what with who else, and not talking in bulk, generalizing about the whole group. The part we are interested in analyzing here is the Federation and its relationship with the human inhabitants of the Earth's surface, specifically the civilian population. How does the Federation view Earth humans? 5D perspective versus 3D perspective. One of the Federation's most cherished rules or laws is that of free will. The problem concerning Earth is that they are not considering the free will of the people of the Earth, because they are seeing it as a secondary interpretation or point of view of the same people on Earth but in 5D, or whatever D they may live in. This is because they consider Earth a playground, a place to have a specific set of experiences and for a very large variety of reasons. As I have explained before, the people of Earth are all starseeds, talking about the real ones here, of course. So from above, from a higher perspective of their own existence, they also exist as 5D people, co-inhabiting more than one place and time simultaneously. This is a fact that spawns out of the very nature of time itself, that I will explain in full in future videos. And I think it is critical, so I can be understood here. But this aside, the perspective of the Federation is to respect its members' free will at all costs. The terrible problem with this is that, as they are perfectly aware, one perspective of the same person changes due to the limitations of life in a lesser density. The Federation will respect the will of the people close to them from a more expanded point of view as the will to consider, and not the free will of the same people in 3D. Life experienced on Earth is wanted and is planned from above by the people who will have the experience there. So the Federation will see the will of the people in 5D, whatever D, as the real free will, leaving the experience on Earth as just a caricature of the original, an avatar, a persona, Greek, who is having a limited experience by free will from above, leaving that 3D person on Earth with little to no free will at all. Also because the people in 3D are also working and functioning from a very limited capacity of perception, and therefore of reaction to situations they live, almost like programs that have limited interactive ability, because their range of thought, movement, and plane resources are so limited by design. So the Federation will only see the needs of 3D people as a limited, distorted need, as compared to the larger, more expanded point of view of the 5D person who willingly planned to have the experience on Earth. So in short, the Federation will observe the experience on Earth as not real and not as valid as the experience from where it stands in 5D, wherever D. The people in 5D have the free will, and the very same people having a 3D experience do not, because they are subjected to the will and the decisions of their 5D versions, because they were the ones who designed the 3D experience they would have willingly. For me, this brings us to many ethical problems. I clearly notice an invalidation of the people on Earth, as seen as just about not real for the Federation supervising this at large. Or at the very least, not for the people who are actually doing the decisions to go and live on Earth, doing immoral and non-ethical things to themselves. I strongly feel this is terribly wrong, because it is not about who is who where and who has more or less value than who else and why. The simple undeniable fact is that a person is the one having an experience, and disregarding who he or she might be above in another density, they are people by right, and their needs are not met in the name of free will. Almost as if the people on Earth are seen from the Federation point of view as playable characters in a video game. They are real only from the point of view of people who are playing the game through them, like a soldier running through a battlefield in a video game. The player is in a soldier having an experience, but that player knows that he or she is only playing a game. Turn it off and they go see what's in the fridge, with no worries. Swaruu X. The Federation is so large it can only see Earth as a minuscule problem, at most, and not even a problem. From inside Earth, as a human, the problem is evident and large, overwhelming and destructive in all ways. The problem is that from outside of Earth, they see people there as avatars of other people, 3D avatars of 5D people. So for them, the Taygetans, you and I, whoever else ranting about what is going on, is only akin to a person fighting for the rights of video game characters, fighting a war and clearly suffering. So the sad fact is that they don't see the problem. Not that they are evil as such. They are just not capable of understanding humans, because their understanding from outside Earth is so expanded compared to humans. So if you tell them, Federation members, that the humans are suffering, they will say, I know, but they signed up for the ride. They see living, incarnating on Earth as a test of character. They don't really see suffering as evil, only as something that occurs when you astray from your path of desires. You suffer because you are not aligned with what you want as a life experience and path. So suffering as such is only part of the game. Why do they fight off the reptiles then and such? Do they do it? Why not let the Earth be infested completely by the regressives? Because if evil is not fought off to a certain extent, it will take over entirely and destroy the Earth, because pure evil tends to self-destruct. So they must stop it when it reaches a certain level. And this is why the Cabal or the regressive ones use so many tricks to twist the rules. And this is exactly why a nuclear war as such will never take place, not with planetary consequences.
You said that the Federation gives all its members a framework of legal, ethical, and moral rules. This common framework applies to all members. But what happens on planet Earth? What frame is being used? A different one due to Earth's unique position with regards to other members that form parts of the Federation? If so, why are there two measuring sticks of ethics and morals?
For the Federation, the Earth is perfectly within its legal framework. The problem here is that the Federation is not a single block within a single level, but in a staggered manner increases not only in terms of area, but also in density within the jurisdiction of each of these levels. The rise of its density causes a change in the perception of existence of its members, of what they understand reality to be. And this inevitably brings a change in their ethics, because ethics is irremediably associated with the perception of reality and level of consciousness of each person. I mean, the level of consciousness of the members that control and compose it. So, from the more expanded perspective of these high-level members, Earth is perceived as a self-contained place or realm where people, call them souls, but it's not that simple, enter at their own risk. They regard the purpose of the Earth as a place of expansion, of learning to control personal reality, of expansion of personal and collective consciousness to which those souls belong. And ultimately, it also favors the expansion of the whole, of the original source. From the almost atemporal position of those people in higher or expanded realms, densities, and consciousnesses, what happens on Earth during an incarnation of a person, soul, who perceives it as suffering over the course of about 80 years, is seen from there as a simple sigh in time, and an enriching experience for all. In the same way, when a psychologist on Earth presents a lit candle to a month-old baby, and the baby tries to touch the fire, burning itself slightly, the psychologist sees it as a learning for the baby. Since the burn will not be serious, it will pass in minutes, since the baby's spinal cord reflex will withdraw the little hand before strong damage takes place. This is also used to test how well the baby's nervous system is working according to its stage of development. From those higher densities, an experience of suffering on Earth has the same value: learning, expansion. The value of ethics and morals change strongly with the expansion of consciousness. So, what is ethical on one level is not ethical from another. This is an inescapable fact that Yazhi and I have observed. This means that from a more expanded position of consciousness, many times the means justify the end. That is to say that purposely provoking situations or events that on Earth can be seen as unethical justifies the positive final outcome that these unethical events cause. This is an extremely important point. This point above is very common to see for people who are at a certain level of expansion, since the ethics changes according to the level of consciousness perception of each person. However, another point is that the imposition of an ethical point of view or framework from above on a lower ethical framework, such as that of the Earth, entails, from one point of view or another, that the superior position ignores or devalues the situation or experience of suffering of the person in the lower position, 3D Earth, as if it were not real, when it definitely is. So, as a more personal comment on my part, from my position, whatever that may be, yes, I see it as valid that in one situation or another, the means, whatever they may be, justify the positive ending, as long as that positive ending is of maximum or critical importance and it takes place. But I also see how unfair this can be seen from the lower position, because just to begin with, the why that is so is ignored. So the legal framework for Earth is the same as for the rest of the so-called 5D, with 5D being the average existential density in space between the cultures that are having an experience in the so-called physical world. It's just that they see the Earth as a contained place, which they can guide in detail and all that happens inside. And that's how it is. Everything is guided and manipulated in detail there. That is why we explained many times that there cannot be a total atomic war or anything like that, because it would end the 3D experience realm completely. But what, yes, can be allowed are more or less localized conflicts or wars at World War II level, and there can also be extermination agendas against specific populations or against the total population of the planet. That is why we say that the Federation ultimately controls everything that happens on Earth, not from an evil position, but to maintain the right of the inhabitants within the Earth, but seen from a framework of legal and ethical understanding different from that of humans, from the point of view of being incarnated there. Yazhi. The fact that the Federation, and by Federation I mean just about everyone not on Earth, ignores the suffering under a different set of whatever moral and ethical ways of seeing the problem as I described above, causes the human's issues and suffering to be taken as lightly, temporal, contained, self-inflicted, and so on. Also causes a long list of side effects, all caused by ignoring the fact that humans there do suffer and do not agree with how they are treated. Like, for example, ethical issues that some simply disregard as plain silly. Like you going to a city council meeting to discuss saving Mason. Mason is a main player playable character in a video game series. I mean, they don't even see Mason as a real person. The one who is playing to be Mason is the one who you should address to stop him or her from torturing Mason in the game. It's a war game. No one truly considers going into the game to talk to Mason, to talk him out of fighting virtual Vietnam over and over. You go talk to the player, not to the video game character. This is the sort of mentality Federation has with regards to humans. I don't see though why they would see this as a game. I mean, those that come through immersions, okay, I understand, but most souls come here as just another incarnation from the source. It doesn't matter even if this is some simulated unreal reality artificially or what. 5D is another game done by the mind, but still a game of the mind. Like you once said, it doesn't matter how the experience is induced, mentally or technologically, when you were discussing memory implants, etheric versus technological, the experience is the same. So, unreal game or not, the experience here is real, and souls do experience it as real. They do understand that, but to a mental level, not to a real empathy level. This is why I've said that non-emotional races are the least fit to understand what is going on Earth. Although the emphatic races are taken as a little sister telling her brother playing video games that what he's doing exposing Mason to the Viet Cong is just plain cruel. Collective want, the field, and the Federation. With all I've said above, then there is another way of working or mechanism of the Earth matrix. What the collective wants does reflect in what the 5D collective of people inside 3D want as well. Because the matrix of Earth, 3D, is made of ideas. And those transcend density to 5D. And then from there, many do make decisions about what they will want to live next or relive next. But looking only at the human collective, the problem is the general mentality of the people. I mean, they don't know how to think for themselves for whatever reason. Many would say because they lack spiritual progression or knowledge. This is very important because they are all into a mentality of following others and not making decisions and taking responsibility for themselves in any way. And the few they follow go into a narcissistic binge, creating more problems and more chaos. This mechanism will create a human collective unconscious. And it is made up of all those perception, value, moral, spiritual, scientific, ethical, religious, and plain common ideas that the masses as a whole take and agree as the truth and as reality. And as we said before many times in other subjects, that will dictate a reality. and it is the very definition of the matrix. Remembering that the people, collective and individually, are the matrix. So it is clear that from that mass that created the collective unconscious is from where the wants and the needs, wishes and all are being sent out to the field, as it is called when referring to the law of mirrors or law of attraction, making them all suffer basically the same fate as if all agreed on what is wanted. Because the need of the one, although enough to dictate what it will get from the field and law of attraction, at least in theory, is dispersed and is heavily influenced by the larger collective unconsciousness. So it lacks focus, therefore lacks results most of the time. So, coming back to the Federation, this is the bulk, the mass made of consciousness, the human collective unconscious, that the law of attraction in the field is reading and is providing whatever is a frequency match to its desires. And observing space law, free will, and prime directive, the Federation will provide or recognize this collective mass desire as what must be respected, and not the wishes of a few who are wanting other things. So as seen from that perspective, those few don't match with the rest, and then lack collective power to demand needs from. I know the law of mirrors works for everyone in an individual way, but I still see many limits to what can actually be achieved that way, because people who are contrary to the collective's desires are still immersed in that collective field. Why would 5D people want to be vaccinated as a collective? What do they gain from that? Separation from source? I don't understand. Basically, as seen from the point of view of the law observed by the Federation. That's what they want as a collective. For now, I think that is as far as I can explain the why, other than the old classical because of the experience. The main point here is that the Federation is not taking into account the needs of the few, only the needs of the many, and the needs of the people in 5D who already knew what they would live. They do know what they would live. Those are mass exodus from Earth. They hold the agreement to live in mass. It defends only the collective agreements. But how do they know that collective agreement? Do they have holographic measurements of that? Because I understand about the field reading that and reflecting back the situation. But they are not reading the field. They are sitting there with their robes. I don't understand how the Federation measures the collective wants. Based on what? Can't be what immersed people said before entering. Those are starseeds now who oppose all this mostly now. Can't be based on afterlife souls either. They don't have access to that. That's Yazhi level. So how do they know? Well, that is quite simple. Only seeing what people are saying in the damn social media. I mean, what do you think they recollect all that data for? It was harder before, when there was no internet. This is also part of transhumanism that I have not had the chance to get to in this topic. But what about 5D wants? You said they value 5D wants more and dismiss 3D wants as only avatars. But then also it was said they look at our collective and what it wants. In few words, they observe 5D needs and wishes, and then from inside the 3D, they also observe lesser wishes as for changing the gameplay from within. So for example, people want to play that horror video game and they know what the game is about and they say, I want it. And then, once inside the game, some things can be changed at the will of the players, but not the general subject of the game. I think it is clear this way. What are some of those things? Vaccines or not vaccines, wars or no wars, variables within the matrix, but not changing the nature of the matrix. Oh, you mean the 5D players wanted to experience whatever 3D Earth brings, and that must be respected. And so then they respect what those players manifest for themselves once in here, because one of the rules of the game for them is to manifest whatever in 3D. So that must be respected and even supported? Something like that, within limits. What limits? Nuclear war will never happen, but lesser wars will. What other limits? Just about anything, no matter how horrible, as long as it does not destroy the entire planet or the matrix, as in the needs of the collective. After they die, they go play somewhere else. And there are never 5D players who go back and collectively say no more. Throughout ages, there had to be millions of ETs passing through this place, and they still support this game and manifesting whatever, suffering and all. Their changed opinion about this place by having lived through it doesn't change the 5D collective of what the 5D players want? Aren't we going to reform the idea about this game on the 5 collective level once we go up there? You are. So how come not other ETs? Many do, but not enough. And it is constantly said that the changes and the influence must be while inside Earth. I really must go now. I wish I didn't. Other points to consider. There is an important part I did not say yesterday. You asked me how the Federation reads the wants of the human collective. They don't. What is going on most probably is the simple action of the law of attraction, giving the people on Earth what they want, mostly collectively. Collectively because the wants of the individuals will almost always be heavily influenced by the collective anyway. So the field is reading, so to speak, the wants of the collective unconscious. And as I've said before, the problem with the law of mirrors or the law of attraction is that if you are under a soup of negativity, you will only bring onto yourself more of the same. You can't just wishful think you'd have a nice life when your unconscious is a mess. And it is a mess because you are surrounded by human unconscious field. So the humans will get only more of the same and will reinforce one another into believing whatever not good for them. And from there is where I'm saying that as a collective, they start to manifest all those tulpas and egregors. And those reflect not only as real objective negative entities, but also as the nightmares that occur on Earth all the time due to simple frequency match. They become compatible to those situations. And to creations that spawn not only out of the collective unconscious, but as reflections of their worst characteristics as a species or culture. Crooked politicians, Cabal, Illuminatis, Satan worshippers, criminals, you name it. So it looks like the Federation is waiting to see them all evolve into a better collective. Waiting to see them evolve? By turning them into transhumans? I don't understand. That's why I said, looks like. That's what they say or hint towards. All I see, we see, is more suffering and mass extermination now. I understand what you are saying above about the field, and I agree. But I still don't understand the lower level, the Federation level reasons for standing behind and not opposing the current medical agendas, papaya shots as I call them. They strongly feel there are too many people on Earth and exhausting the resources, so it's better to remove them using papaya shots than letting them die off with the rest of the planet as it is being utterly destroyed. That's how they think. The problem is there aren't too many people. And I am quite convinced that this is coming from a lower level of this mess, from the Illuminati Cabal level. From there, they do want to remove the entire population because that's the only solution they see to overpopulation. But also because they feed off suffering, as you know. So this is all a big ritual. We all know this. But this does not exonerate the Federation. As I've said before, they become criminally permissive in the name of their no intervention laws, as we've said before. Because they can fix the mess on Earth if they wanted to, no doubt. But they don't. So no, I am not buying all that they say that the Federation is helping humans a lot and that we are bad-mouthing them. I am sure that's coming from people, humans playing Federation. Because we are ruining what they are attached to. So I still see the Federation as a bunch of bureaucratic criminals. Okay, you said it's probably coming from the Illuminati Cabal level, but are they being controlled by the Federation? Yes, they cannot do this alone. That's why the Federation is being permissive. It has to be orchestrated from above. But the idea, so to speak, is more from the Cabal level. But as I've said before, they won't do anything without the Federation above moving them. So it's a situation where the execution is almost of human origin, from all those Bilderberg billionaires, Freemason, Jesuits and all those. But those always obey others above, and those above. So it is Federation. That's why this is permissive. They cannot just say they have no hand in this. The humans, broken shoes, become a frequency, law of attraction match for those things. Those then manifest as Cabal criminals, billionaires with no empathy. And those, also by frequency match, will reflect the worst ideas of the human collective. And those from above, because they have direct, no channeling bullshit contact with the Federation, will act not only in a narcissistic way, but also obeying Federation rules and laws. And this is where the problem is especially strong. The Cabal highest levels working with the Federation in a self-interest manner, and the Federation is complying with them, as it is part of the Federation control structure of Earth. And the Federation does observe the human collective, but through the eyes of the ones who talk to them, as they cannot have a direct access to all the wants of the human collective. So they will give them what the Federation thinks the humans as a collective want. The Federation only gets the information from the leaders, and from there decide. But the Earth leaders will only tell them what the people want as a collective according to how they interpret things. And the Cabal is controlling the people of Earth with manipulative ways. So many say it's not their fault. But in reality, those who are controlling the people are the result of the very chaos of and in the human collective unconscious. So they are being manipulated because that's what, as a collective, they are building as their leaders. As the saying goes, a population will be reflected in their leaders and will have the exact leaders that they create. I'm sorry, I still don't understand though. Why does the Federation want to kill us off? Even if the idea is coming from Cabal levels. They don't want? Only being permissive, perhaps? As an example, the Cabal tells Federation that there are too many people and that they have an ethical plan. Then the Federation would say, you must tell them. And the Cabal has been telling the people through media, movies, and all that, although the people don't get it. So it looks like the people want it. The Federation looks the other way then, because it looks like that's what they want. Why aren't there the rules of how to tell the people? Why is it all obscure? Who in their right mind would think that something told in the movie is actually them being told? That's nonsense. I am quite sure those rules are being twisted by the Cabal and those on top of it. Because hiding truth as science fiction is deceitful. That's lying. That's manipulative. And can the Federation see that then? And change those rules? I thought Cabal must obey the Federation. I think they are seeing that manipulation as the result of the people of Earth again, as is the very existence of the Cabal. And that's where respecting 5D people's wishes comes in, right? As in, you knew what you were getting into. Yes. What a pretzel. And as I said before, the same people who leave Earth and are 5D again will bring the 3D matrix with them in their values and thoughts, as we've witnessed so many times with the stellars that end up getting lost in the matrix, of coming back up with the same mentality. Swaruu X.
How is humanity going to be able to advance if it is directed towards self-destruction as a planetary reset every time there's a growth in ethics, morals, and spirituality? I get the feeling that the Federation effectively wants to perpetuate this artificial reality until someone from above decides to stop all of this barbarianism.
Humanity as such will only advance in a way that the controllers dictate. And these controllers are many and at various levels, as already explained. But ultimately, the main controllers are the members of the Federation. So there can be no advancement of the base civilization or the general public on Earth. And part of the reason why a reset is done is to maintain the parameters of the very human experience and how it should be, as planned previously from outside the Earth. These parameters of what an experience on Earth should be come from above, from outside the Earth itself, and are controlled by the same people who incarnated or will incarnate on Earth, but from a more expanded mind point of view within their existence on higher planes, before incarnating on Earth, or reincarnating on Earth. And in the case of those who have multiple incarnations there, those parameters will be based on their very experiences on Earth. When a great spiritual advance is achieved, the people, souls, who have achieved it no longer fit into the Earth because their values have already evolved to a degree that it is incompatible for them to be there. So said soul people will lose the interest of being there. And knowing how everything works, they are no longer interested in returning to Earth, because for their souls, the incarnations on Earth have already fulfilled their function of expanding their consciousness and souls. Souls, removing all religious connotations. So yes, although with modifications coming from the very same souls people players, the Federation will basically keep the Earth within that artificial reality and artificially controlled. From the position of within the incarnation on earth, it is perceived as barbarism, and it is. But from the outside, they are only the parameters of the very reality and density. The Federation can be perceived here as an evil controlling entity. And from the point of view of someone having an incarnation on earth, by definition based on their own values and ethics frameworks, the Federation can be interpreted as evil. However, the most expanded reality, as I have tried to describe above, is much more complicated, since the Federation is only a multifaceted, multi-level entity or body that, due to its variety of ideas, ethical frameworks, and levels of understanding, cannot be classified neither malignant nor positive, since falling into these kinds of definitions is falling within a very reduced, reductionist framework of understanding, and only seen with the simplistic understanding of the point of view and opinions of many people who speak about these subjects on Earth. The Federation just is. It cannot be understood with preconceived, simplistic ideas and with a purely human framework of understanding. The Federation is not good. It is not bad. It is just a complex body.
Will the Federation allow humanity to be interstellar?
From the Federation's point of view, and as already explained, humans are not a species. They are a biosuit that allows multiple races or species to coexist on Earth with a common experience called being human. The Federation as such does not view humanity as a species or as a race. It is a biological suit accessible from various ways or methods, based on the morphology of the races called the Lyrian group. This is because the Lyrian body is seen as one of the best designs, most practical and strong, to survive in the biological environment of the Earth. So, answering the question directly, it will not allow it, not as humans would wish. The Federation does not have to allow humanity to become interstellar, because according to them, it already is. And their going out into the cosmos as humans destroys the very purpose of humanity.
Can you remind us what interstellar means, please?
Interstellar. A civilization capable of moving from its place of origin to any other point outside its own solar system. Otherwise, it would only be interplanetary. One that has enough technology to navigate among the stars and what this brings with it. One that knows multiple cultures of other stars and has dealings or agreements with those other cultures. Why Yazhi, Swaruu X, and Taygetans view the Federation attitude as regressive.
We see the Federation as an institution that has become so big it no longer can maintain a holographic system, so it is turning into a very complex, multi-layered problem. We consider the Federation to be the ultimate controllers of Earth, and to who the Cabal in control of Earth responds to. They are, from the Earth's perspective, not friendly to the Earth's population. Having said that, this does not mean that within the very large Federation there may be organizations, factions, races or similar that are friendly to humans. So, I am not disqualifying all the Federation, but in bulk. And judging by what it is doing now, practical results for Earth, they're not doing anything in favor of the human population. We are officially Federation as well, but we do not agree with their double-faced attitude. We work alone now, as we best can, and limited by the Federation as they do with all races involved with Earth.
Swaruu X. Talking about military, the Federation at large and generalizing is heavily militarized. So who are the warmongers now? Where is the Federation of Love and Light? There is no evidence to its existence as described by contactees on Earth and all those established and socially accepted ufologists. There is no evidence whatsoever about the Federation helping humans or about to liberate Earth from evildoers. Only empty promises. The Federation has never intervened in the way or manner people would want it to. Where was the Federation during the Dark Ages? Where was it during the atrocities of the First World War? And where was it during the subsequent annihilation of the so-called Spanish flu, 1918-1920, where millions died due to the papaya treatments that were rolled out to cure what was simple flu? Exactly 100 years ago, nearly to the day from COVID nonsense. I mean, it's not even original. They did it 100 years ago. This is just a rerun, repeat in a larger scale. Where was the Federation then? Where was the Federation during countless atrocities all throughout the history? At least we have the balls to call out what is really happening. Federation has never intervened in the way or manner people want and need. What makes them think this time it is different? The only thing that is different this time that there are so-called and self-appointed Federation ambassadors telling the people that the Federation will intervene. But beware, that is only deception, as it has never ever happened as they'd like it to. So the media, the controlled pseudo-alternative media controlled by intelligence agencies, are only using that information to control and manipulate the people to yet another level. Yazhi. Okay, look at the Federation objectively. Sorry, where exactly can we see all what they are doing for humans? Really? Where? Tell me, I insist. Where is the help? Show me. We are in the middle of mass destruction, and where the hell are they? Tomorrow they will come, they say. Tomorrow it is too late. It is too late today. We had a plan how to help, and the answer was no. And now we cannot even say anything against them? Doesn't that sound suspiciously like media and YouTube ban? They won't shut me up. I know the truth and I will say it. And contrary to what they are saying, I am telling them with proof that the Federation is doing nothing to help them. When I see the help, when I see them solving problems as all those New Age people say, then I will eat my words. But now they should eat ours. And I have spoken. What is that truth exactly now? Who is really behind this destruction? Oh, truth is complicated and no one holds it. But here I am referring to the simple fact that the Federation is doing nothing at all to help humans. Yes, they may be helping the departing souls and all that. But on Earth, now, what life humans want from their perspective, incarnated perspective, it is unfair and a crime. And again, as we've said before, they don't give a damn about the people. only about the interests of the souls from a higher perspective, wanting to experience all that suffering on earth for experience, they say. They help departing souls? How? When they die and they are starseeds, they are directed back to the incarnation cycles of their places of origin. According to them, the Federation, of course, as no soul belongs to any place in particular. That is only another belief system. I see. So humans as such have no rights. And they are wrong because they are observing things only from their higher density perspective and disqualifying the perspective of someone on Earth. And they also do that because they want to maintain their Matrix playground, right? Yes! Where else would they play all those sick games? The Federation has no excuse. They can solve the problem now, immediately. So, they are resetting the society, right? Yes, they are, but not in the way they are telling the people in the New Age community. The Federation can solve the problems on Earth in a very short time and make it look so the humans take the credit as it should be. They don't do it because of metaphysical reasons? Really? What would the metaphysical reasons be, though, to experience your soul being disconnected from source and dying through papaya treatments, and have a transhuman society under total control of the regressives? What does soul gain from that, really, from their higher perspective? It will be severely severed and damaged. My point exactly. Then they are soulless. So, what are they doing now, the Federation? Removing what they think are excess people from the Earth, the softest way they can think of. Turning it into a super high technological trans-humanistic Borg-like hive-mind planet. For the experience, they say. It means mass murder. So the Federation is mass murdering. But the New Agers love them, like they loved Stalin. You mean papaya treatments? Yes, and other related agendas. Food, medicines, mind control, poisoning, all that. But are they the ones orchestrating this themselves or just allowing? I am not clear on that still. Both. Federation is huge. Some members of the Federation are orchestrating all that. Others are being permissive. Others are being manipulated or even blackmailed into complying, like the Taygetans. And how do Maitre fit in? Those are manifestations of the larger collective, egregors. Hard to wrap your head around that, but they are the materialization of all things and all thoughts of fear of a larger collective, including many stellar races. Yet, they all seem to spawn from Earth. Being an egregor, though, does not mean they aren't real. Egregor only means how it was created or spawned. How are they blackmailing you? You know the list. From messing with you using puppets on Earth to Federation headquarters sending warnings to leave to Alanin and everything in between. It all fits. They are all pieces of the same agenda. To remove our bum from here. Okay. And those egregors, even being egregors, do they have a role here? Because you did say what's happening on Earth has their signature, Maitres. So are they involved in this? Or is it purely Cabal Federation orchestrating? They are, because they are an effect of evil, and evil is fear. And where is the biggest fear factor in this galaxy? Earth. But at a lower level point of view, the Federation, represented by races like Alphratans, Centauri, Andromedans, Arcturians, Syrians, Antarians, is working against the evil Maitre and reptilians who want to hurt the poor humans. But from a higher perspective, the Federation is playing both sides, because it is all a sick game for souls to play. Souls on Earth and in 5D, like the Taygetans, those are players too. And those other races as well, just like the Illuminati, financing the Allies and the Axis Nazis during Second World War, making Messerschmitt Bf-109 fighter planes for Hitler in Ford factories in Detroit. So, you mean the lower level of the Federation may not even know that? And they honestly might be thinking they are helping and doing something positive? Yes, but that's only so from one lower level or another. Using World War II analogy, people are angry at you because you are saying that the Royal Air Force is working for the Nazis. So they see that as preposterous. But from above, the RAF was working for the Nazis because both sides belonged to the same overlords. I am not working and I am not thinking at a lower Federation level. You know me. I look above. I know it is them. For the simple fact that they are so powerful that they could end the problem in a few days. Why don't they? Because that problem-sick Earth playground is what they want. They only play as if they didn't want it. And in the meanwhile, all those starship fighter pilots of Antares and of Centauri in their shiny UFO fighters perceive that what you say, what I say, is unfair. Because they place their life at risk every day when they go out to their CAP, Combat Air Patrol. Ignorant they are that their high command is causing the problem to sell the solution, just like the Cabal on Earth, because it comes from the very same people. Antarian and Alphratan fighter pilots might indeed think that we are unfair, you and I, for saying that all the problem on Earth is contained and under 100% Federation control. So it is unfair for them because those can or do place themselves in harm's way to enforce the blockade around Earth, so no unauthorized spaceships go in. Also in harm's way because the humans themselves end up shooting at them, sometimes with lethal results. As last year, when an URMA pilot was shot down, even when he was flying a state-of-the-art feline fighter craft. His name was Ishti of Avion. The thing is that I never denied the fact that Federation pilots, basically fighter pilots, specifically do risk their lives every day. The problem no one on Earth is saying is that this is just another level of the same game, sick or not, that the Federation controls. One strong example is the Second World War, where fighter pilots from both sides battled every day over the skies of the world, losing their lives defending their side, family and friends, fighting enemy aircraft that were also fighting for friends and family. So the fighting was real, and it was gruesome. But from above, the Illuminati was controlling both sides of the war as a sick game. And from even higher above, the Federation was being complacent with both sides, permissive, as it's only a game, and game it is. I do not deny it is a game, because it is a game, sorry, get over it. What I rant about, and the Taygetans and the URMA, is that it is a sick game, because while you are inside it, the suffering is very deep and terrible, and no one can deny this. And when they do, they are being plain abusive. This meaning the Federation, Earth as a problem deniers. But the lower levels of the Federation, they should be smelling something fishy going on. And on their lower level though, like during the Second World War, they still had to be doing something to make lower level officers believe they were on positive side. What are the lower Federation levels doing? Yes, and I don't doubt many are smelling the rat, like the Taygetans and the Urma. But every time something is achieved, something else comes up. So they are trying to put out a fire when the arson causer is still running around with a lighter. It is the never-ending story of solving a problem only to see that 2 new ones have come up. Give me some examples, please, of what those lower Federation levels are doing, those good ones. And all this, by the way, makes so much sense and it's so obvious. Once again, you made this very clear to me suddenly, and this actually reconciles a lot of the Federation issues. What are they doing? Awakening people telepathically. Then they will be called nutters. Chasing Maitreya and reptilian fighter ships with Antarian and Centauri equivalents to enforce the blockade. But they permit more portals to be open, causing a mass awakening in people, which in turn will cause more conflict. But that's what they want. They play both sides. They want to accentuate duality and conflict with it, to perpetuate their sick game. So they are all hard at work, making the vibration of Earth rise. And when it is full of starseeds doing their work, they throw in a wrench with a false health threat. And so everything comes crumbling down again. Because no doubt, the current health threat was orchestrated from the highest control level of Earth. The Cabal only responds to their overlords, and those are Federation. The problem here is that people don't have more than a 5-minute attention span, more like 2 minutes nowadays, so they don't absorb all the information before making up their minds and opinions about something. We have never said the entire Federation is rotten. How many times have we stated that the Andromedans and the Arcturians and all those with whom Alanim talks to in the Viera are also terribly worried about the situation on Earth and wish they could help more. They are worried, and what we say, is not against them. It is against the whole system, the larger Federation, how it is managed. I know the people of Earth are to blame for what is happening to them. I know the Federation says that if they solve the problem for the people, they wouldn't have learned any lesson from the experience. Those are their main excuses. And yes, it is the fault of the human population. Yes, it is their mess, karma as they say. But those in the Federation cannot see further than that. Nothing wrong with giving a helping hand. Suffer in one density, you suffer in all. You don't need to suffer to learn, as you don't need to burn your hand to know you don't like it. They are going against us now because we know their sick game. And it's not the Taygetans who are moving all this. They are only one race among many, waking up to the realization that they too live in Matrix. Only a bigger cage, but cage it is. So ease off their backs. I am the one saying all this, so blame me alone. Leave my friends to live in peace. The Federation is always using tricks and puppets, never stepping forwards to give a direct message to someone, only using delegates, people that are seen only as humans. It is them who want us to shut up because we dare to talk. All they do is conveniently hide behind their own rules of their psychopathic game. And even if I must do this alone, I will continue to do so. Because enough is enough of your sick, suffering game. I have spoken.